Hello everyone, this is Mr. James and I'll be leading the assembly this week. I've given it the title, The Necessity of Community. I'll explain what I mean by that later on, but to set this up, I'm going to make a statement about our culture. I think that we live in a culture that can be very individualistic. What do I mean by that? I mean that we're more interested in individual people than in society. Now, we have seen some examples in this current situation of some behaviour for the common good to make society better, which has been great to see. But I think the statement still remains true. We have a culture that tends to put more emphasis on personal happiness than collective happiness. In order to prove this, I thought it might be good to give some examples. Here's two phrases that you might have heard somebody say, or you might even say yourself. Here's one. Do what makes you happy. I think that's a phrase that a lot of us have probably said. I know I've said it. Here's another one. Just be yourself. Now, I mention these examples not because being yourself is wrong, and not because wanting to be happy is wrong. These are good things. But if it's the only thing you're focused on, then you're not thinking about other people. For example, if just being yourself means that you're going to be a fairly horrible, nasty person, then other people are not going to appreciate that. If doing what makes you happy brings you into conflict with people, then I'd say you need to consider what other people think of that. The point is, if you always do just what you want, then other people can be affected, and that can be a negative effect. So to repeat, if you always do what you want, other people are affected, and that can be negative. For example, if I always did what I want, I wouldn't be a very good parent. In fact, I'd be a terrible parent, because a lot of parenting is about doing things that you don't necessarily want to do, but that you know you should do for the benefit of your child. It might be the same if you're a son or a daughter or a brother or a sister. You see, to be human means you need other people. You're not independent. Perhaps the best way to think about this is to think about, well, what would I be like if I never ever met another person in my life, if it was just me? I don't think I'd be a very good person because I wouldn't have other people that I could show love to, or be kind to, or receive those things from either. What would you be like if you never met another person? To be human means you need other people. Now, that leads me to this man. This man is Desmond Tutu. He's a cleric, as in he works for the Anglican Church in South Africa. He's a theologian, so he studies God, and particularly the Bible in his case. And he's also a human rights activist. He was an advocate, and he is an advocate of the idea of Ubuntu. This is a Southern African idea that's really quite difficult to define in English. But perhaps this phrase helps. The idea of Ubuntu is kind of encapsulated in this phrase. A person is only a person through other persons. If you have Ubuntu, then you behave in a certain way. It changes your behavior. For instance, if you have Ubuntu, if you believe that you're only a person through other people, then you believe that you kind of achieve yourself by sharing yourself with others around you and caring for those people. You're a person based on the way that you interact with other people. And that therefore should be characterized by sharing and caring. Now, if that doesn't make much sense, then perhaps I can make a slightly silly example, but maybe one that's more understandable. This is a comic book. Well, actually, it's a film of a comic book. The Fantastic Four. If you know anything about the Fantastic Four, that would be great. But if you don't know anything, let me explain. The character on the right is Mr. Fantastic. He's a scientific genius who can stretch his limbs huge lengths. You then have, second from the right, the Invisible Woman. No prizes for guessing what her special power is, but she can also produce force fields. Then on the extreme left, you have the Human Torch, who, as you can see, can envelop himself in flames and can also fly. And then lastly, you have the Thing. He's made out of rock, so he has superhuman strength and resilience. Now, if you know anything about the Fantastic Four, you need to know that they're pretty dysfunctional. They don't get on, they often fight, a bit like all families do sometimes, and they need each other. Because in any episode or film or comic book of the Fantastic Four, if you as the bad guy can attack just one of them, you can defeat them. Because their individual strengths are not strong enough to defeat evil. Individually they're impressive, just like you, but they're far stronger when they fight as a team. If you want to defeat the Fantastic Four, you pick off one of them so that the others can't help, and then you'll be successful. But when they work together with their individual strengths, then the bad guy is defeated. I think that's a nice picture of what we're trying to say. We need each other. There is a necessity to have community. And it may well be that some of your normal communities have been lost. For instance, your school community isn't accessible to you at this current point. Some of you have not seen certain members of your family, I'm sure, maybe because they were shielding or because they live far away and you weren't allowed to visit. Remember that phrase that encapsulates Ubuntu. A person is only a person through other persons. Can I encourage you, if you haven't yet, to make sure you reach out to people around you, your friends and your family. Maybe use technology to call them or text them or to video call them. Because to be on your own, I don't think makes you a person. It's tempting because you don't have to share and care, and you don't have to consider other people's feelings and opinions. But can I say that community is necessity? A person is only a person through other persons.